Hi, I'm Ryan Ely, and in this PowerPoint we'll be discussing how social learning theory is important to persuasion and the 7 articles that I use to kind of support this hypothesis. What is social learning theory? Well, for starters, Albert Bandura is the founder of the social learning theory. His theory consists of 4 different parts, which are attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. In plain words, the social learning theory is based on what we learn by observing others, which we call models. How is it important to persuasion? After reading and researching my 7 different articles, I concluded that the social learning theory can be used as a persuasion mechanism in almost all walks of life. If you think about it, we have models no matter where we go and no matter what we do. As children, our parents were considered our primary models, and they taught us things growing up that probably have stuck with you throughout the years. If you answered yes to this, then your parents have successfully persuaded you into doing something that they do. Persuasion is everywhere, you just have to know where to look. Moving on, secondary models would be considered everything else besides your parents, and even characters in the media are considered models. In the world of business, the advertisements try and persuade consumers to buy their products. Let's take a look at the 7 articles that supported my hypothesis that social learning theory is very important to persuasion. Starting with article number 1, researchers Chen, Feng, and Wang conducted an experiment with school-aged children from 126 schools to research persons with disabilities and the public's perception of them. In Western societies, we are typically respectful to people with disabilities, whereas in Asian cultures, they are lacking in this area. They tend to not pay attention to people with disabilities over there, or they kind of snub them. Asian cultures typically aren't seen ever engaging a person with a disability, which can also negatively impact that person and kind of destroy their confidence about engaging with other people. However, these researchers engaged in this study to bring about more civic awareness and education about individuals with physical disabilities. The test questions concluded that people who interacted with people with disabilities help boost their confidence, and this also helps these people be more social. The test questions that were used for this study were based on age, sex, family backgrounds, education level, prior contact to a person with disabilities, and perceptions of these people. All of these mentioned questions were based on a 1 to 4 point scale. 1 meant to completely disagree, and 4 meant to completely agree. For the second article, researchers Ebersol, Krieger, and Day asked the question, how do adolescents interpret parental substance abuse? 108 interviews were conducted, and each interview offered an adolescent some form of substance, usually in the form of alcohol or tobacco. The study found that if parents are the ones offering the substance, then the adolescents interpret as being okay to use that substance. It's pretty much like giving them the go-ahead. The research also concluded that social learning theory has a big hand in adolescent thinking and behavior. It was also self-reported during these interviews that adolescents viewed their parents in a positive light regardless of their substance use. While we are on the subject of parents, our primary models, let's discuss how a mother's affection toward her son affects his affection towards his romantic partners. Researchers Haynes and Davis unfortunately found this study to have no correlation at all, and the amount of affection mothers give their sons has no way, shape, or form any difference on their relationship with any person they choose to be with. Article 4 and 5, Media Character Models. Researchers Nobby, Clark, along with Kaufman, Simpson, and Becker, all did research suggesting that the media is a potential model, especially for adolescents. Nabi and Clark proved that adolescents watching shows involving the models engage in a sexual behavior viewed casual sex as normal and with having no real consequences. So basically, what this is telling them is the show is suggesting these types of behaviors, and the adolescents think it's okay to do this with no real regard to what could happen to them, especially STDs and the like. Kaufman, Simpson, and Becker concluded that Jersey Shore characters were viewed as models by viewers as well. And this show sent messages such as degrading women and downplaying the risks as well of these types of sexual behaviors. Kaufman, Simpson, and Becker broke down 4 conversations from the Jersey Shore, and all of them shared those 2 similar messages. This type of research leads to more positive evidence suggesting that social learning theory is used in persuasion other than by our primary caregivers. The media persuades us to think certain ways, act certain ways, and even buy certain things. Can social learning theory take place in the grocery store? Well, have you ever heard about a deal at a supermarket from one of your friends? Did you go and buy the product in that advertisement? If you did, social learning theory was there to persuade you to do so. Luo, Andros, Song, and Aspara did their research asking the question, do our peers influence what we buy based on how popular an item is? An anonymous company from China collected data for these researching regarding consumer data, group consumption, price, and redemption records. What all of these results showed was a positive correlation to this question, and yes, our peers do persuade us to buy things from different places. Social learning theory and group behavior. Have you ever went to a concert or a dance party and everybody there is just dancing away and you feel the urge to join in? Well, this is what this article has to do with. Researcher Zantel found that social learning theory acts as a precursor to group behavior. His research concluded that if one animal or person is doing something, then the more likely that action will be repeated by others. This is called social facilitation. Even research done in 1965 by the researcher Zhang showed an experiment with rats displaying them pressing a lever to obtain food. When one rat saw another rat do this and saw the reward of food, the second rat repeated this behavior. Others are very likely to follow the leader in group settings, research shows. Some of my final thoughts. Well, out of the 7 scholarly articles I reviewed, 6 of them held positive correlations with persuasion. That is good news for social learning theory, but I fear the limitation of my study is that my sample size of 7 is not good enough to prove that social learning theory is important to persuasion. However, the results do look good so far.